And that's the bottom line. You want a war? You're going to get one.
The cream rise to the top, oh yeah.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
Hard work pays off. Dreams come true. Bad times don't last, but bad guys do.
The crew is back for another Wednesday night. 35 straight so far this season without a break. Was beginning to wonder if we was going to have Eric with us tonight, but he scooped his way out. And
doesn't get any better than that.
Nothing like 8-10 inches of snow to cap
We were
off.
worried about having power. So
you go from golfing on Monday.
sounds
to
like my
scooping
old
snow on
hometown
Wednesday,
is going to be without power for. Yeah, it's going to be. They're going to be without power till about tomorrow at noon.
Well, St. Louis had a little bit of activity of our own this last weekend, and there's a lot of damage. 13 tornadoes recorded in St. Louis Friday night. Some of them on the ground as far as 30 miles. So to have a few screens to replace, pretty thankful for that. Could have been a lot worse. So, we probably should get started. We've got a star-studded field tonight. Probably even a bigger field than what you anticipated when you first come on tonight, but Cat got let out of the bag a little bit on some of the guests. So,
Right.
Without further ado, let's get San Antonio started.
We love the moments, the memories, the magic, the game. So let's get more. More of the action. The celebration. The unforgettable. The football. Our town, our team, our herd.
And I knew if we were going to have a discussion about San Antonio, we had to bring this guy on to break it all down with us. You'll know him as one of the trio in the Smoking Guns podcast in San Antonio. Let's bring on Leo Yamas. How you doing, Leo?
What's up, guys? How you doing? Horns forward. Thanks for that introduction for San Antonio and the Brahmas faithful, the herd as they call it. Thanks for having me on the show. How you guys doing?
We're doing great.
Well, aside from a huge snowstorm, I'm doing great, Leo. Looking forward to tonight. Great.
I don't know what.
More than I expected.
Nice. I don't know what snow is. I apologize. Down here in South Texas, but I've heard some things about it.
It's white stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's cold, and we got about that much of it. So
we'll have to apologize for Eric's connection tonight because we're even lucky he's even on tonight with all the electricity problems and stuff. So
yeah,
whatever you get from Eric is a bonus tonight. So if he freezes up from time to time,
that's right.
Just the way it is. So welcome,
that's
Marty,
right.
Robert, Chad, DJ, Marty. Welcome. Thanks for joining. Good to see you joining the show. So let's kick off just a little bit with San Antonio and talk about last year. San Antonio finished 7-3 in 2024. All three losses were by there were one-score games.
Yep.
2 of the 3 were at the hands of the St. Louis Battlehawks, but San Antonio was able to win the one that really mattered in the XFL championship.
Someone predicted that on this show, I believe. Big Daddy.
That
was you.
You know what? Leo's exactly right. Leo come on here and said, in fact, you took a lot of heat for that, if I remember right.
I did.
San Antonio faithful was not very happy with you at all for your prediction in Week 10 to lose to the Battlehawks, and you just come right out and said, "Hey, it is what it is, but we'll win the one that matters." And you were right on the nose, man.
Yep. Happy to be
I
right.
think Leo had some inside information. Didn't you, Leo?
Well, I don't know.
You had some inside information on AJ McCarron's leg, didn't you?
I can't divulge my sources, so I'm gonna have to plead the fifth on that. But when I can be right, I'll take it, because around here in the household, the Yamas household, Lolis is always right. If you're a smart man, you'll understand that. And so
I will tell you, Leo. I will tell you, Leo, that thought transcends, because it's a lot that way in my household too. So, hey KJ, thanks for joining.
It doesn't change here either.
So, San Antonio made it to the championship game last year. They really stuck it to the Battlehawks in the playoff game. Lot of sore feelings about the championship game, I know, from San Antonio fans. Not just the way the game went, but also the support that they got from St. Louis. So I'm sure some of that's still raw. But what was your initial thoughts? I know that you made the track down because you tailgated with us for a little while.
Yeah, we had a great time out there in the parking lot with you guys, the groups out there, and all the Battlehawks faithful that were in the tailgating group. It was night and day, though. Once we got in the dome, it was like a completely different experience. If you were wearing the dark gray or black, if you want to call it, and yellow of the Brahmas. We weren't treated so nice inside the facility as we were outside the facility. Yeah, and that game, look, Birmingham was a better team. They were a better team, no doubt about it. But San Antonio didn't show up. Let me rephrase. Not everyone on that roster, that 2024 San Antonio Brahmas roster, showed up to play the game to win. And that's not an excuse. That's just what happened. And the Brahmas were going to have to play their best game to beat Birmingham. And obviously you can't do that when you've got important pieces of your team that aren't going, balls to the wall, all out then you're handicapped. And there was just no way. And we saw that on the field. I think it was pretty apparent.
Yeah, it really did a disservice to the San Antonio fan base because for a championship game to be in St. Louis after, back-to-back tracks for week 10 and in the playoff game, the XFL championship, to have the fans show up like they did on the championship day, only to find out that there were some things going on behind the scenes that kind of took away from the San Antonio effort. That was pretty disappointing. I will say that. And I wasn't even a San Antonio fan that day, but I was sporting the San Antonio Brahma t-shirt that I was given before the game started. So I was representing, but no, it ended up being a very disappointing game. But let's move on to this year to talk about bigger and better things. So, well, I guess I should say we can move on to bigger and better things, but what starts off the 2025 season? San Antonio finding out that one of their home games has been given to St. Louis. So
what? What? Wait, you said home game? You said home game, right? Home game.
Thank you, Leo. Thank you, Leo. But
how is that, other than on paper, how is that a home game? I mean, explain this to me. I just don't understand it. It's the only thing that comes to mind is, for the revenue, the ticket sales, because the thing that would have made more sense to me, this is one of my gripes about the UFL season that's coming up 2025. Why not play that game in Arlington when both teams, whoever that away team might be, if it's the Battlehawks or anybody else, they're both already in Arlington. So neither team has to travel. And they stay there in Arlington and they play a game in Arlington where San Antonio Brahmas faithful can actually take the trip up I-35 and actually attend their home game, or right down I-10 in Houston. That's another option too. Why not do that? And Eric is absolutely right there. That's all this is about. That's the UFL saying we need this, and Brahma fans, sorry.
Yeah, but it's putting one more game of 32 to 35,000 fans in the stands. That's what it's all about. It's totally. We've talked about it at length on this show, but I'm telling you right now, it is not fair. And you are correct. Why not have it in Arlington, where it's not that long a drive for Brahmas fans, where you got to come all the way back up to St. Louis for a home game? I mean, you know why they did it. We all know why they did it.
Well,
and
also, even if there was a scheduling conflict in Arlington, and even if there was a scheduling conflict in Houston, football is a big enough deal in Texas that you could have picked out any of a number of high schools and had plenty of seating for any of the game. I mean, anywhere you wanted to put it. So yeah, we know. Everybody knows. So
yeah, and
we know this too. Well, we know this too, that the UFL is looking for butts and seats. They want to see, I think we've heard numbers 10 to 15% increase. So, they're taking one game away that maybe San Antonio has 15, 17,000, and they're going to make sure they got one more game that's got 30 to 35,000 in St. Louis. That's all it was. It was a total, numbers, money game, whatever, but it kind of screwed San Antonio bad. It really did.
Yeah, and on top of the fact, and we'll get into this, Ed, I know you want to talk predictions and talk about the season, but that's on top of the fact. What makes that sting even more is the first 4 games for the San Antonio Brahmas are all on the road. 1, 2, 3, 4 games to start the season on the road, not a single home game. Now, that's not all on the UFL. A lot of that has to do with the home venue of the Alamo Dome and having other commitments and, March Madness and other things going on there. And I get that. But I also think the UFL could have done a little bit more, looked into some other options, at least local or close to San Antonio as a temporary space, because there are options around here. Anyone who lives in San Antonio knows that there are options around here. There's college stadiums. There's different places that we could have utilized, and not had such a poor schedule. It's a poor schedule.
It's Texas, Leo. You guys got to have high school stadiums that are all turf that
We
can
do.
hold 20,000 people in them. I mean, it's Texas.
We do. We have like the biggest high school football stadiums in the country here. I mean, I hear from people all the time that are visiting, and they see stadiums off the highway, and they're like, that's a high school football stadium? That looks like what we have for college. And I'm like, yeah, that's high school. And those things fill up on Friday nights. Friday Night Lights, it's a big deal around here. And there were other options, but I think someone dropped the ball. The UFL's never going to admit it. And I'm not even saying they should, because that wouldn't be the best thing either. But obviously they dropped the ball when it came to scheduling for San Antonio, and that's not even the full story. There's more to it. As far as the home games that we have being on a Friday, 2 of them are on Friday night, I think, and another one is on Sunday evening. There's 2 Fridays and 2 Sundays, and the Friday night. I mean, Ed, you've talked to Dirty and Amanda, and you guys have talked to people, I'm sure, from around the UFL. We've lost Eric, that have been to San Antonio and seen the tailgating experience there. So Brahma fans go hard on the tailgating. Go ahead.
I was down in San Antonio for the championship game.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to see the tailgating
right.
firsthand. We had a really good group that day. And as you talk about it, you talk about a brutal schedule. Let's talk about it. Five of the first 6 games are on the road, and the games you have on the road is a murder row. You got Arlington, St. Louis, Michigan, DC, Birmingham. That's 5 road games against very quality teams.
Brutal.
To start with, before you even really get a chance to get your feet wet at home. So it's gonna be very important, that you guys are able to tread water, and at least, you come out of those first 6 games at 3-3, I would think you got to be feeling pretty good.
Yeah, and that's exactly my feeling, Ed. So, usually when a team starts off with a lot of games on the road and you look at it, you're happy after that brutal road stretch. You're thinking you gotta go for at least being a 50-50 ball club at that time. If it's 4 road games, you want to come out of there 2-2 at least to feel good about things. 1-3, and you're probably in trouble, and that's usually the case. But when you have that 4-game road schedule to start the season, and then the next, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games, you have 1 road game, but one of your home games is also on the road. And then you have you're risking the morale of the team at that point when you're going through the grinder like that at the beginning of the season. It might be too much. It might be too much to ask of these guys, and that's what I'm concerned about. Talent-wise, they have what it takes to make some noise. I do have some questions. We'll get into that if you want to talk players. But I think talent-wise, they got a lot of returning guys, and Wade Phillips is, in my opinion, the best, if not one of the best coaches in the UFL. He's got a great offensive coordinator in AJ Smith, proven metal there. this team has what it takes to be successful, but they're starting out behind the 8 ball in the 2025 season. It's going to be a rough sledding.
So, Marty, I will tell you that we are also looking for the hitman. I can't tell you where Brett is right now. He's not backstage, so he must be out chasing wild hogs again or something. I don't know.
He's shaking hands, kissing babies, something like that.
We need him to get back in the deer stand here pretty quick.
He's actually out of the deer stand tonight.
Oh, okay. So let's start off on the offense. You know, you brought up a good point with Coach Phillips. You know, he's definitely a defensive mind, and it definitely showed last year with the San Antonio defense. But this year, you know, you start off with a big question mark at quarterback, kind of in the same position that the St. Louis Battlehawks are in. So let's talk about Kellen Mond. You have a little bit more insight on Kellen, so why don't you take it away and kind of give us the skinny on Kellen Mond?
Well, Kellen Mond is from San Antonio. He played high school at Reagan High School here in San Antonio, so we're familiar with him here in the city. That's going to be good for the Brahmas as far as getting butts in the seats. You know, then he played his college ball at A&M and did pretty well there, well enough that he was a third-round draft pick, as we were talking about before the show. I think the expectations for him going into the NFL were maybe a little bit too high. And so he should have been, I think, a little more time to cook. But I'm high on the guy. He's a dual threat quarterback. San Antonio, the Brahmas haven't had a quarterback that's a true dual threat like he is in the history of the team. He could throw the ball. His long ball is not the best, but that's not the game of the Brahmas anyways. That's not the offense that AJ Smith runs, so that's okay. I honestly think Kellen Mond has the potential to be the best quarterback that the Brahmas have had since the beginning. So a quarterback, even though it's a question mark because we got a new guy, you know, we've got Kevin Hogan, the beard, returning. That's the Kevin Hogan, bar none, the most fantastic beard in the entire league. If you could get points for the beard, then, you know, give us 10 points there. And then the other guy is Jarrett Guarantano. But you know, I think this is Kellen Mond's job to be honest. And I think he's got some potential to be the best quarterback the Brahmas have had. But the question mark in my mind, Ed, is who's he going to throw the ball to? You know, if you look at last year's offense, Jontre Kirkland was far and away their best wide receiver. And then beyond him at wide receiver, see, I had some stats here I can pull up real quick. Jontre Kirkland had 56 receptions at the wide receiver position for 614 yards. And the next closest wide receiver behind him was Justin Smith with half of that, 25 receptions and 265 yards.
Yeah, we had Jontre. I mean, Kirkland, he finished second in the league in receiving yards last year.
Yeah.
But then after him, you'd have dropped down to 12 for Cody Latimer. And of course, Cody's not with the team this year. After that,
he's retired.
Like you said, where's the rest of the wide receiver? Where's the receiving yards going to come from? Because I got to believe as the league continues to get better and better talent-wise, that these defenses are going to be too good and they're going to figure out a way, if not to take Kirkland out of the game, definitely be able to limit what he's able to do in a game. So what's their plan B? I mean, you got John Lovett returning at running back, which is a good thing. He finished fourth in yards in the league last year, so he's a quality running back coming back. But, you know, is San Antonio looking at the same situation as last year where they're going to be relying big time heavy on their defense? And if they get behind in a game, are they going to have the offensive firepower to come back?
Yeah, I think the running game is going to be much the same as last year, a strong point, like you said, with John Lovett. And then don't forget Anthony McFarland. That guy is just lightning in a bottle. That guy could take it to the house on any given play. He's a receiving threat out of the backfield. Also, he's not a big guy, but he runs with power. But it's his size that's a concern. Like he missed some time because he's a little injury prone because of the physicality of his game. But when you're not big, that's what happens. You take the risk of the injuries.
And that's the one thing that I think the St. Louis Battlehawk fans forgot about was the fact that when they played the Battlehawks in the regular season, I don't think McFarland played. I know he didn't play in Week 10.
Nope.
But, they kind of got lulled to sleep. And when they got McFarland back in that playoff game, what a lightning rod he was. He had a long score, I believe, that game. Yeah,
he did. And, he practiced that week in the first game, but I was surprised to see he was on the injury report. And that's why I made that prediction. I said, well, they're holding on to him for the second game because that's the important one. That's exactly why I made that call, because of that exact reason. But getting back to this year, your question was like, who's the next guy going to be? So there's two guys. There's two X factors in the San Antonio receiving positions. Cody Latimer's gone, like we said, tremendous talent at tight end. So who's the guy going to be? So the hope is, I think, Alize Mack, who's been around. He's got the tools. He's a big physical guy. He makes incredible catches at times. He's got some really good highlight film put down. But what you don't see on the highlight film is all the drops. He's got a case of the drops. He's as good as his hands are on some of those plays. I don't understand what it is, but it's got to be maybe a mental aspect or something. He's got to get over that because he has a lot of inopportune drops, penalties, untimely penalties. He had a habit of. So if they're going to depend on him, and looking at the tight ends, it was just him, and they went out and got another guy, Sabert. I'm not sure how you pronounce his last name. They went and got him, but he's never been a big receiving tight end, even going back to college. I think he's more of a blocking tight end that can catch the ball from time to time. So if they're going to rely on him at that tight end position, we'll see if he can get over, his issues in the past. And the other guy, in my opinion, and this is going back to my Commanders days with the AAF back when we were filling the dome here in San Antonio, Greg Ward. They brought him back. He signed with the Brahmas. He spent some time with the Philadelphia Eagles, a couple stints there, one after the AAF, and he did some good things in his time in Philly. He's a little bit long in the tooth now. I think he's probably the oldest guy on the team, but he brings experience and leadership. And just watching his career when he was a Commander and then as an Eagles, he's got a lot of talent. He's not a deep threat by any means, but he's the kind of guy that just goes out, runs his routes, gets separation, and will go and catch a ball. If you get a ball to his catch radius, he's gonna catch that ball more often than not. So if he can kind of bring back some of what he had when he was a little bit younger, maybe that works out. But those are the two guys I have circled as the X factors. If one of those two guys can step up, then maybe they can do something. But you're not going to get too much if you're relying on Jontre Kirkland. And like you said, the defenses in the UFL are just going to key in on that guy, and it's going to be rough sledding for Kellen Mond.
Well, last year the O-line did a good job. They only allowed 17 sacks for the year, which was the second best in the league. However, having said that, they also only had a third down efficiency of 38%, which was in the bottom half. St. Louis, everybody liked to think with A.J. McCarron that St. Louis had this lethal offense, when in reality, St. Louis was dead last in the league at, I think it was 32% third down efficiency. And it's just too hard to sustain drives and get any kind of flow when you're constantly punting 3 and out. Puts a lot of pressure on that defense. So you know, as bad as the San Antonio offense was on third down efficiency, and in the other way, on defense, they were number one in the league. They only allowed 32% third down efficiency. So again, Wade Phillips shows his colors as a head coach as being a defensive mind. And well, I mean, Brett's big on the trenches. So Brett, when you look at San Antonio last year and then kind of look forward to what they got this year, what's your thoughts on how San Antonio is going to stack up?
That's being a Birmingham fan and then just being a league guy in general and watching every game and trying to keep up with every player and statistic and on and on and on. To me, the two that I was terrified of all year and it came to fruition, the two teams that would give Birmingham the most trouble because of the trenches is San Antonio and Michigan. And I think for the most part that's what the whole league's going to be dealing with this upcoming season is probably San Antonio has the best offensive and defensive line combo. I think overall Michigan's defensive line might be a hair better, but I think it's obvious that San Antonio's is going to be better on the offensive side. So that should definitely keep them in basically every game this upcoming season.
So it's interesting you say that, Brett, because if you look at the Brahmas roster this year compared to last year they had, I think it was 9 offensive linemen on the roster, not including the center. So the center that they had 2 centers, so it was a total of 11. This year I went and looked at that. They got 5 offensive linemen and 1 center. Does that tell you there's a depth issue? Or I'm sorry, 2 centers. So does that tell you there's a depth issue, or does that tell you that they believe a lot in the guys that they have? I think it's the latter. And I think they have, they're going to have one of the best offensive lines in the league. I agree.
Yeah, but with the numbers you just mentioned, that is scary. I hope they got some guys on that's going to be on the practice team or a pool that they can pull from, because even though it's only a 10-game season, in the trenches, those guys are going to get beat up. Hopefully not, hopefully nothing serious, nothing season ending, but I'm going to tell you, Birmingham had a heck of a pass rush last year. So did Michigan. And I don't have the statistics in front of me, but San Antonio, and they didn't have a mobile quarterback last year, and now they do. And you still couldn't get to their quarterback.
Exactly. And what Ed was saying earlier about the third down efficiency for the Brahmas last year and how bad it was, honestly, watching all those games, I think the biggest problem on that third down efficiency was quarterback play. And this year, it's going to be a different story. I have more hope for them on third down because of Kellen Mond's mobility. So I think that's part of the plan.
Did we share the power rankings that we came out with this weekend? No.
Oh, the power rank? No, I did not. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
If you send it to me, though, I'll make sure we have it on before the show's over with. But you're talking about your defense from last year. You got 3 returning starters that were in the top 7 in the league in tackles. Jordan Mosley, Devontae Beckett, and Jordan Williams were all finished in top 10 in tackles in the league. Now, some people can say that's a double-edged sword, because if you're leading in tackles, that means your defense is out there a lot. So that's not wrong. A good thing. That's not always a good thing, but no, I think it was pretty easy to say that last year the strength of the San Antonio team was their defense for sure.
Well, I think the biggest strength for San Antonio on the defensive side of the ball last year was their team speed. I mean, San Antonio was fast to the ball, and it wasn't one guy. It wasn't 2 guys. It was 3 or 4 guys to the football. And, we've already talked to a couple of head coaches in different Zoom meetings and things like that, and they've all, to a man, if San Antonio gets brought up, it's defensive speed. So you see Leo, San Antonio still carrying that forward.
Well, yeah, they still have a bunch of those. They still have a bunch of their dogs coming back, from last year. They're Beckett, not Beckett. Delonte Scott is no longer there. AJ Hendy has moved on, but they still got the two Jordans, Williams and Mosley coming back. They've got Beckett coming back. They've got a lot of key pieces of that defense, and it is fast, but it's also physical, Eric. They're also they were fast. Watching that first game against Birmingham last year when we played them here at the Alamo Dome, that was a loss, but it was a close game, and it was the first time that Birmingham really got popped in the mouth. And I remember seeing that was I think there was some silliness going on the field in the first half where there was a little bit of extra physicality going on, and they had to throw some flags from the Birmingham side because they were frustrated, and they were frustrated because they hadn't played the Brahmas until late in the season. That was the first time they see them. They hadn't played a defense that was fast, but then also could not maybe quite match them, but get close to their physicality. And I think they were frustrated. They were worried there for a second. Now they got their composure and they ended up winning a close game. And then they took that game and learned a lot from it. And then just, we saw what happened in the championship. But yeah, for sure. I think San Antonio, they're going to lean on their defense just like they always have. That's definitely coach's forte and his expertise. So yeah, I agree. I do think the defense is going to continue to be their staple. And the offense is going to have to, just pull a little bit more weight this season if they want to be successful. And they can, but my biggest question mark is who's going to catch the ball.
Well, Leo, we talked about the offensive line and you mentioned them, basically having 7 guys on the roster. As you look through these rosters, as I look through the Battlehawks roster or I look through San Antonio's roster, you can tell just by the number of guys in camp where teams believe they're solid and where teams believe we got to find some guys.
Yeah.
So, I bet if you look at their overall roster here before the cuts, if you're only seeing 7 offensive linemen, you're probably looking at a dozen to 14 receivers.
Yeah, you're not wrong. There's a whole lot of wide receivers.
Yeah. So as you mentioned with Lattimore being gone and Kirkland being the man, and then who else? So now you're looking, they're bringing in everybody in the kitchen sink at wide receiver to try to find that guy, because as I look through the Battlehawks roster, it was kind of the same thing, kind of indicated to me, okay, we're strong here, but we're looking here. So, I'm kind of thinking maybe San Antonio, just from a roster standpoint, if you look at these teams and you go through and see, man, they got this many guys here and this many guys here, they feel like they're pretty strong there. And so I think your indication of believing that their offensive line is solidified and very good is spot on. But also, who's going to catch the football may also indicate why they have a ton of receivers on the the roster right now.
You hit it on the head too, Eric. I went down and counted. There's 14 wide receivers on the roster.
Yeah.
So,
listen, I've gone through all the rosters and I've kind of done the math a little bit, and I'm like, man, this team must be hurting for receivers because they got 14 of them on the preseason roster. So yeah. What else you got, Ed?
So let's get into. Let's kind of start wrapping this up because we've got some other guests we need to get on and move on to the St. Louis Battlehawks. But let's kind of do a roundtable here. And Brett left us again, so we'll get his prediction later. But if we had to look at the 2025 season, being kind of put behind the 8 ball to begin with, well, what are we thinking is a realistic record for San Antonio And depending on what that record is, do you think it's good enough to get them into the playoffs? Let's start with you, Leo.
Well, because you put me on the spot like this, Ed, is one of the reasons why I'm one of the most hated fans in the Brahma in the Brahma herd. Because
well, if they ever say anything to me, all I'm going to say is Leo's keeping it real.
Yep.
So look, I've said all kinds of good things about the team. You know, I love the coaching. You know, I'm excited about the quarterback. We're bringing back the main two guys in the running back stable and some other guys. I think the running game and the defense is going to be great. Jontre Kirkland is an outstanding wide receiver in the UFL. But if defenses only have to cover one guy, you're in big trouble. So until I see something from those other guys, and Greg Ward is really who I'm hoping is going to be that guy. You know, it might be better, you know, than what I'm thinking. But starting with those 4 games off on the road, man, I'm looking at, you know, you split those first 4 games. Hopefully you're not going 1-3 or 0-4. If you're coming back to the Alamo City and you're 0-4,
ooh, forget it.
It's over, man. Sorry, but you know, they come back. They have Houston first, which at home, so that's good in my opinion. But yeah, looking down the schedule, I see 6-4. That's realistically what I see, and I'm going to take some crap for it from the Brahmas faithful and the fans, but that's just what I see. That doesn't mean I'm not hoping it's better. I'm hoping it's better, but looking at this and being realistic, first 4 roads on the game, and one of your 5 home games is against the Battlehawks in St. Louis. Come on.
Right.
Yeah, 6-4 is my prediction. Is that good enough to get into the playoffs? I don't know that. You know, that's a it might not be. It might not be. I hope it is, but yeah, 6-4. I think the Brahmas are a playoff team talent-wise. I just think they have the cards, the deck stacked against them right off the bat. So it's going to be tough. So they may miss the playoffs with that 6-4 record. If they can sneak another one in there somewhere and go 7-3, I think 7-3 is good enough to get in. It's, you know, that was the case last year, and I think 7-3 is good enough to get in. Hopefully they can sneak another one of those road games or the road home game and add that to the win column, and then I'll feel a lot better about things.
I really see, especially in the XFL conference, I see a lot of parity this year.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're going to have 4 quality teams that it's going to basically turn into a bloodbath. So I think it's easy to see that you could have a log jam at, you know, between 4-6 and 6-4. You know, and that doesn't mean that any of the 4 teams isn't a good football team. It's just that, I mean, they're constantly beating on each other. So I think 6-4 is realistic for San Antonio. I agree that they could sneak one out to get to 7-3, but I even think at 6-4 it may come down to a massive tiebreaker, because I really do think there's going to be several teams that are going to be pretty nip and tuck for most of the season. So those XFL conference games for tiebreakers are going to be so important. But yep. I kind of echo your sentiment. I'd say 6-4. What about you, Brett?
I mean, I think their floor is 5-5, and I think their ceiling is 7-3. Again, reason why I put Arlington third in the XFL rankings that I did this week in the preseason rankings didn't have anything to do with talent. I know I had Brahma fans coming after me 2 months ago, and I had some coming after me this week, but a couple of them acknowledged. My thing is the schedule, like we've just covered. You got St. Louis on the road twice, DC on the road, Arlington on the road. But let's talk about also your 2 USFL games on the road, and that's the 2 best teams in the USFL, Michigan and Birmingham. That's brutal. I mean, that's absolutely brutal. And I'm going to tell you what, if Arlington makes it to the playoffs with that schedule, look out. I mean, that's a brutal schedule, and that's the only reason I had Arlington. I think Arlington's going to be better this year, and I had them second behind St. Louis in the XFL conference. Still a huge question mark in St. Louis at that quarterback position, but that's why I gave Arlington the edge over San Antonio in that last playoff spot.
Eric?
Well, I think the biggest problem with with making predictions is I think every team in the XFL side needs to go 2-2 against the USFL side. I don't. You can say what you want. You cannot go off of last year. You cannot automatically say Memphis and Houston are going to be bottom feeders. I just don't think you can say that. Their rosters. I mean, Houston. I mean, what they got? 4 guys back off the roster last year, so we have truly no idea what Houston's going to be. Memphis with Wisenhunt. I've interviewed Wisenhunt and Horton, their defensive coordinator, and I'm telling you what, they're excited about what they're seeing. They think they're better up front. Horton thinks that their defensive line could contend, with Michigan and Birmingham's on that USFL side. So if that is true, and you have to contend with Michigan and Birmingham on that side, I mean, 2-2 is not a bad deal, and then you go to what Ed is talking about on the XFL side. I mean, you got to go to St. Louis twice, and you still have the games with Arlington, home and away, game with DC, home and away. I mean, you're probably right. 6-4 would be, it could very easily on the XFL side be a playoff team because, you go 4-2 on the XFL side, and you go, you split with, let's say St. Louis, you split with St. Louis, and then maybe you split with Arlington, 4-2 and 2-2, 6-4, that puts you in the playoffs. I mean, so I do see 6-4, but I do agree with Brett, 5-5, maybe be in the floor because I think your defense is too good to be any less than that. But the thing that we found about, the UFL games is, telling you, there's so many one-score games. Look at Arlington last year. Arlington had a rough season, but my God, they were in almost every single game. So, what if that turns around for Arlington this year and all of a sudden they're winning those one-score games? I mean, there's so much, and I think Brett said it, parity in the league, or maybe Ed did, that, again, 5-5, 7-3, so that 6-4 does sound right. Not sliding anybody, but I mean, I feel the same way about St. Louis when we talk about St. Louis. You have question marks, and so I think 6-4 probably nails it.
So we've already went over a little bit, Leo, and really appreciate you coming on.
Glad to be here.
Why don't you let everybody know where they can find you, and also again, mention your podcast too, because it's you do more than just the UFL, and I don't think I ever miss a Monday, so I always enjoyed your podcast. So why don't you kind of tell everybody what you're involved in and where they can find you, and then we'll let you get on your way.
Yeah, thank you, Ed. Thanks for having me on the show. I always enjoy coming out and talking with you guys. I'm with the Smoking Guns podcast. Smoking, no G, Guns with a Z. POD, as my co-host Philip likes to say. I'm a co-host with Philip Higginbotham and RC Woods, the lovely RC Woods, who also does another show called the Ed, help me out. My mind just drew a blank with the ladies over there.
The A-team with RC. So RC
yes.
and my daughter Amanda are part of the A-team podcast.
Yeah. So RC is the third co-host on the Smoking Guns, and we cover professional football in San Antonio. We have been for many years, all the way back to the Commanders days, back when we were the Command Post podcast. Same three people. So we've been doing this for a while and just doing it because we love doing it and we love football and we love San Antonio. So we continue to do that. We're currently covering the San Antonio Gunslingers of the IFL. It's arena football. If you haven't been to an arena football game, you should try it. It's a lot of fun. I know there's a lot of people who don't like the small field and don't like the speed of the game, and it's just a lot going on all at once, and I get that. But if you haven't tried it, you should try it because they can be a lot of fun if it's your thing. And if it's not, I get it and I understand. But that's what we do. We're all over the different social media networks, Facebook. We have our show, like Ed said, once a week during the season. Right now we're doing Tuesdays. We were on Mondays for a while. Now we're on Tuesday. You can find us there. Facebook, YouTube. We've got an X page. We're on Instagram. Come and check us out sometime. We appreciate it.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on, Leo. And this won't be the last time we see Leo because as the matchups warrant, and there's plenty of matchups that will warrant a return trip. You'll probably get tired of us before we get tired of you. So, I'm sure we'll be having you on again in the coming weeks. So stay tuned. Thanks again, Leo.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Points
Leo.
forward.
So let's take a break. And when we come back, it's going to be time to turn it over to the St. Louis Battlehawks.
Are we taking Brett off for this one?
We are courtesy of the UFL. We'll be right back.
The best of the best is coming together. There's no more what ifs. We're all one league now.
Ready to shut it off. I'm number one in the building.
There's no more talk. Put up or shut up. We'll see who the top dogs is now.
Strap it up and line it up.
Joining forces means more power.
Delirium in D.C.
More potential. More reach.
Unbelievable.
Look for a chance to play ball, man. Chance to show that you still got it.
The hunger is unreal.
Helmet goes on. Nothing else in the world matters.
Tell them I'm ready. Whenever they want, 'cause I'm ready.
A league that pushes the envelope and opens the door to living the dream.
I've been an underdog my whole career.
Football is kind of my last resort. If I could just get this one little break.
Brace the moment, man. This is as fun as it gets right here.
United, they stand to stake a claim to springtime for America's favorite game. Are you ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
You know we ready. Yes, sir. Ready to run it back.
Hell yeah, I'm ready.
For a new era.
Let's go.
New challenges.
Best in the nation.
A new beginning.
The time is now.
Line it up, Playboy. Let's do it.
I can't wait to see you guys play.
Are you ready?
This is the United Football League.
Just don't blink.
Got the backdrop changed. Let's see the official intro, courtesy of the UFL, and we'll get the St. Louis Battlehawks started.
We love the moments, the memories, the magic, the game.
Touchdown!
So let's get more. More action. More celebration. More electric battle dome. More football. More of what you love.
Let's go, baby. Great job.
We
I
are
just
back.
can't
It
wait.
ain't long now. It ain't long now. A little over a week, and we're ready to kick things off here.
9 days.
We have got enough info to keep everybody here till midnight. And of course, you've noticed that I always get the old hands mixed up, but the old backdrop has been changed, and you see the dawning of the Battlehawks. But before we get started with all the player info and the coach info and all that high-tech stuff, we got to get the fans ready to go for a little bit of the flavor of the day and what they're in store for. So I couldn't think, when you talk about the tailgating experience in St. Louis, I couldn't think of anybody else better to bring on first to kick off the St. Louis segment than Rick Story. Let's bring him on.
Rick,
Hey, Rick,
welcome.
how you doing?
Hey, thank you guys for having me on.
So anybody who tailgates for the St. Louis Battlehawks knows that the true tailgate begins and ends with Rick Story. And,
I don't know about that, but we've been doing it a while.
so when did you actually get started? You actually, I'm sure it goes back more to the Mizzou College days, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. We've been tailgating there since 2009. Yeah, 2009. So we've been to every game, or tailgated at every game since then. And then started the St. Louis Battlehawks tailgate page in August of 2019. And, we kind of only got a couple games there for the COVID deal, but it was still a good time.
We reached out to the Battlehawks last year, and they were very gracious, and they allowed us to have quite a few of the high school students in Confluence Academy. It's a downtown inner city charter school here in St. Louis. The St. Louis Battlehawks stepped up and offered a very nice block of tickets for some of the athletes of the school and coaches to go see a game last year, and worked with Rick, and Rick was gracious enough. He's got a whole group of helpers, man, and they fed, I think it was 60, 65 kids plus coaches.
Oh, absolutely. Everybody stepped up, even throughout the lot, even people that weren't tailgating with us, kind of jumped in and, handed out the food and dished out the food and was very gracious. We really appreciated it.
And so I know that this year we're looking at, what else we can do, but I also see, when I saw the schedule for Mother's Day and saw that St. Louis was going to Memphis to play the Showboats on Mother's Day, first thing I thought of was a tailgate caravan to Memphis with Rick Story leading the way. So,
we're definitely going to be there. We've already got the rooms rented, and we're just trying to buy our spots in the lot now.
So we've got the Memphis Yacht Club in Memphis, of course. Bill Alexander is he's very involved with the Showboat team, and I know that they take a lot of pride in their tailgating as well. So I was kind of hoping that maybe we'd be able to kind of do a Rick Story, Bill Alexander work together, get a big old tailgate going. And if it spills over to Bill Street, it spills over to Bill Street, I guess. But
Boy, that'd be great, wouldn't it?
So anyway, what I'm hearing is that the tailgating lot, at least the church lot, right across the street from the dome, there is already sold out.
Oh, absolutely. We're pretty fortunate to be there. You can't get any closer to the stadium than what we are. It is going to be, I think tailgating is going to be a little hindered this year, being the traditional vest lot is not going to be open now. I mean, that lot's been the tailgating lot through the Rams and everyone else. So that's going to kind of cause problems, I think, for people finding spots.
The vest lot is not going to be available this year.
Oh no, it's no permits for the vest lot.
Wow, that just shows you I've kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, how many cars you think actually can park there? I mean, it can handle
it's an endless lot.
Yeah, it could handle all of the tailgaters pretty much if it was open. But yeah, the lots that were open last year and the year before are no longer. They're not going to be there.
And then the lot that we had on the other side of the dome that I was going to before I moved over to the church lot this last year, that lot was taken away as well because the dome America Center is adding on, so they took away some of those lots too. So
right, wow,
that could that's going to make the church lot a very popular place to be.
Yeah, I think so. It's pretty much going to be the only one on that, on the Cole side, Cole Street side of the stadium. So, it's going to be pretty packed there.
So that big lot right next to the church is going to be all open?
Well, yeah, there's no permitted parking there. I mean, like the whole vest lot, which is, kind of an iconic thing for St. Louis, is the vest lot. And yeah, no permits from the city, so it's empty, basically.
Why would they do that? I mean, that place was packed.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it absolutely was totally pretty much sold out, and now the city's going to lose the revenue on it just because they want upgrades for lighting and stuff done on a lot. They want somebody else to pay for it.
Oh, so
once again, the city's shooting themselves in the foot, losing revenue.
Not surprising.
Right.
Well, I'm not going to keep you any longer. I know it's late on a weeknight, and you probably got work to get up for in the morning and stuff. But we appreciate you coming on for a few minutes and talking with us. And everybody's getting geared up for tailgating. So when you think tailgating, you think Rick's Story. So
we can't wait.
So why don't you let everybody know where they can find you before we let you go?
So the main page is STL Battlehawks Tailgating on Facebook. Also, you could follow me, Rick Story, on Facebook. But anybody that needs a place to come tailgate, don't be shy. If you don't know anyone or have anywhere to go, our tailgate welcomes anyone and everyone.
That's awesome. Well, thanks again. I'm sure we're going to be right next to you again around the corner.
Sounds good.
We're going to have the Avenue of Flags going. So they got that nice fence that makes it pretty easy to attach flagpoles to it. So
that always helps.
So we're going to be representing every team in the UFL all season long. So that's going to be a nice little feature there. So
yeah, I'll see you in about 18 days, Rick? Something like that?
That sounds good. That sounds really good. Oh, yeah.
Yep, Eric's coming down again with his whole family this time. So
perfect.
We'll make sure we stop in. I'll get in touch with you, see if we can't get something else going with the inner-city schools again this year. So we'll be in touch.
We're always up for helping out wherever we can.
All right, sounds good. Thanks a lot, Rick.
Thank you all. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Rick.
Hey, see you, Brett.
So now, before we get into the nuts and bolts of this, I got to welcome our next guest. The bottom line is welcoming a real icon in the St. Louis area and about the biggest chick magnet there is. A creature.
You don't have to welcome me. I'm already here.
A creature that is eager to wave a tale of valor and honor and take super fandom to a whole new level. In 2020, just as the Battlehawks were hatched in St. Louis, so was this mythical creature. The armor he adorns, he gives thanks and honor not only to his better half, Battle Chick, but also to the mighty Battlehawks in the Lou. No one represents our Legion of Warriors better than he. Welcome to the bottom line, Excalibur. Caw-caw! So, so before we get into, well, let's just start this way, Excalibur. Let's let you address your faithful, and we'll go from there.
I would like to say, my noble friends, as the moon doth rise, it is my humble joy and most honor to darken the doorstep of thy most esteemed pod of casting, the bottom line.
I love it. I love
it. So you've been doing this now since 2020, correct?
That is correct.
What do you find? What's the most rewarding thing being Excalibur?
You know, the most rewarding thing is the smiles on everybody's face. I can't tell you what it means to me, and everybody sees you and they want to give you a high five, and they want their picture with you, and you know, especially the kids. I love it. You know, old, young alike. I'll walk around, I'll toss rally towels, I bring suckers for the little kiddos, and I go home at the end of those days, and my cheeks are hurting from smiling so much. You know, the Battle Life has always said, when you got a helmet on, just don't smile. Easier said than done. You know, when somebody smiles at you, you smile back at them. And it is like that all day long. It's the most rewarding and by far the funnest thing that I have ever done in my life.
So you mentioned the rally towels.
Yes, sir.
Is there a little update there on the rally towels of what might be in store for this year's rally towel?
Yes, sir. They are in print right now. If you look at my Facebook page, you'll see a picture of the artwork that is being done to it, thanks to my noble comrade at tailgatingaddicts.com. A lot of you may know him as Sir Kenny Lavender. He's a genius when it comes to that. Got some great ideas for artwork, and he's helped me out tremendously. So I'm sponsoring him on my rally towel, the NTZ Network, Heroes Honor, who does apparel for first responders and their supporters. Gosh, I'm drawing a blank off the top of my head. Of course, the one and only, the Bottom Line Podcast. I thank you for being a sponsor. But I think I have 5 sponsors this year, and the money I generate goes to the printing of the towels, which I don't sell. I walk around and I toss them at the games, and any little bit of money extra that I have, I use to purchase, suckers and little toy foam swords for the kiddos. And I tell you what, man, it literally is so fun just to see the smiles on their faces, and even walking around the tailgate lots before the game and inside the game. It's really one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. I have so many people come up to me and thank me for doing what I do. but I got to tell you, I feel like I'm the one that's getting the gratitude out of doing what I do. I love it so much. I never expected it to get to this level, but it's been received by everybody so well, and I just try to keep taking it up a notch each year. So I'm not going to give anything away, but might have a few more tricks up my sleeve for this coming season.
So I know I brought you on for football talk, but out of concern, I have some real life issues I'd like to talk to you about.
All right.
Have you and your family been dealing with the bird flu? I know it's really wreaked havoc on your flock. I know it's a touchy subject for you. I don't want to ruffle your feathers.
Well, we have not been infected by the bird flu, but with the price of eggs on the increase as they are, I got more friends now than I did last season.
I was going to say that the cost of eggs, that's got to really be clipping your wings, doesn't it? I mean, back in the day, you could raise a dozen chicks and kick them out of the nest for pretty cheap, but now, shoot, you almost got to have the chicks one at a time now to be able to afford them.
I'm telling you, and you know what? Battlehawk eggs are a delicacy.
One parting question, and if it's too far on the political scale, you don't have to answer. I would like to know your Easter tradition. I would like to know if your family, do you hard boil eggs?
Only the cousins that I don't get along with.
There you go. That's what I was looking for, because I thought, you're kind of messing with ancestry when you start hard boiling those eggs. So. But anyway, really, I had a chance to meet Excalibur. I think it was 2 years ago I met you for the first time, but it was really the first time I really got to talk to you. So I was kind of hard on Excalibur when I first got to know, when I first heard about him. But all I had to do was see him once at a game and see the way he was lighting up the kids' faces, and felt to know that he's got a heart of gold. So
I appreciate it.
St. Louis appreciates everything you do. I know every week there's a home game, I see him lining up to get a chance to have a picture with you or get a towel from you. So I know you're having an impact. So you're a part of the game day experience. So I couldn't think about talking Battlehawks and not having you on. So why don't you let everybody know where they can reach you, and I'll let you get out of here. I'll let you fly the coop.
Follow me on Facebook. I do have an Instagram account, but I don't get on that often. I am working on a website, hopefully coming this year soon. And, look around the dome on game days and in the tailgate lots, you'll be able to find me. Just look for, all my feathers. You had Rick on a few minutes ago, and that's the first I heard about the vest slots. That's a real bummer.
That's going to take a few miles off those bird legs of yours, aren't they?
It will. At the end of the day, when I go home, I got an app on my phone that tracks my steps, and I typically have about 30,000 steps on game day. So I'm a little tired at the end of the day, and I try and pay attention to the game as much as I can. But most of the time after I get home after game day, I'll have to rewatch the game because I miss a lot. People want to get their picture or high five, or I'm walking around doing my thing. I pay attention during the critical moments of the game, but I miss a lot.
Yeah, I've seen you doing your work, and I wonder how much of the game you really get to see. So
yeah, I try and watch as much as I can. I try to pause in between, when the play is going on. I'll pause and pay attention. But people constantly come up and want picture, and that's great. I have no problem with that at all. I'm more than willing to stop and do whatever I do and take a picture or greet somebody. People message me a lot before the game and say, hey, we're in section such and such. My son really loves you. If you can come up and say hi. And I'll try to make my rounds. I'll jot down on a little piece of paper and I'll map out my quest. And so I try to accommodate everybody. Sometimes I just can't make it happen, but I do my best.
Well, I would that seals it. I guess you're just gonna have to learn how to fly, man.
I guess so. Yeah.
Yep.
You're gonna have to learn how to fly. Well, the word of the day is immunize. Get immunized, because we can't have Excalibur getting the bird flu. So,
nothing's going to be down.
So again, thank you for coming on, Excalibur. Everybody's looking forward to seeing you walk in the dome again this year. So won't be long. We'll be seeing you in the nest. So take care.
It was my great honor to parlay with the deceive. And it is with bated breath and steadfast heart that I doth eagerly await the time when we shall stand shoulder to shoulder and ready our arms for the first clash upon our sacred soil. Until then, fare thee well, and may fortune smile upon us all. And I bid thee farewell.
Thanks, Excalibur.
The bird jokes were quite good, Ed. You had to rehearse that a little bit, didn't you?
We got a little slideshow going on here with Eric.
Yeah, gosh.
If it wasn't for, he told me going into the night that he had this vast array of player knowledge that he was going to invoke on us tonight. So I feel like I got to give him a fighting chance to be a part of the show, but he's like all over the place. So let me get started and see if Eric can chime in at some point. The St. Louis Battlehawks finished 7-3 in 2024. 2 of their 3 losses were to the top 2 teams in the USFL. The Michigan loss was on a 64-yard last-second field goal by Jake Bates. His time expired, and the other was a 4-point loss at Birmingham. So this year, fast forward, we got St. Louis gets a gift of an extra home game right off the bat. And so let's try it again. We got Eric this time. Oh, for crying out loud. So if you look at St. Louis's home schedule, it's a must-see. The St. Louis home schedule consists of San Antonio twice, DC, Michigan, Birmingham, and Arlington. That's an ouch. So as we talked about San Antonio's schedule, St. Louis has as daunting a schedule, but at least for the most part, we get most of them at home. So we're going to definitely have the crowd to back the Battlehawks, where San Antonio doesn't have the same luxury. But what's your initial thoughts, Brett, about the St. Louis Battlehawks heading into this year?
They've got another strong team returning. They've probably improved on the defensive side of the ball, especially in their front. They've got unlimited weapons on the offensive side. The one question mark, like we've got and have already mentioned, is the quarterback spot. They no longer have A.J. McCarron. Who's going to be quarterback one, and what is it going to look like with that offense? I mean, The defensive line is definitely, with some of the additions they've made, have improved, especially on the pass rush. My only question mark, really, they losing a couple offensive linemen and then the QB number one, because I just don't see, was it Manny Wilkins? If Manny Wilkins wins the starting spot, St. Louis is probably going to have a long season, especially offensively.
That's not happening. That's not going to happen. We've seen Manny Wilkins, and he's, he's can do some things with his legs, but I think from what I'm hearing out of training camp anyway, is it's Cordero or Duggan. And actually, I've seen a couple of areas where they're kind of leaving toward, I believe, Siobhan. Is that right, Ed? Siobhan Cordero?
Yeah. Yeah.
That he may even have an edge. So,
wow.
I think he played Siobhan. I think he was in Hawaii, and San Jose State is where he went. Played his college ball at. And of course, Max Duggan was at TCU the year that TCU went to the championship, and ultimately got beat. But yeah, I think that's probably where the quarterback is gonna. That's where the quarterback room is going to fall. It's going to be one of those two guys, I believe.
Well,
would you agree, Ed?
My concern, though, is I saw some highlights from the scrimmage they had today with Arlington. And whether they were showing some clips of Duggan and they were showing some clips of Cordero. And the common theme that I watched, they dropped back to pass, and it seemed like they were taking off running at the drop of a hat. And when you look at Manny Wilkins, that's kind of the same game he had, as he seemed to rely on his legs more than he did throwing the ball. So once again, like last year, we had a hell of a wide receiving core. Problem was, we never tested the other teams. Everything was a short game. It was screens. It was, slants, that kind of thing. We weren't stretching the field. So my question is regardless of whether it's Duggan, Cordero, or Wilkins, are we going to be committed? I mean, because you look at our wide receivers, our wide receiving core this year is going to be legit. But again, it's legit if you utilize them and stretch the field. Are we going to do that? That's
correct.
The question.
When you look at Butler coming back, Pearson coming back, Jackson coming back, and then two of the additions in Denzel Mims out of Baylor and James Bostic out of Ohio, I think those five guys right there. We have a ton of wide receivers in the room. When we were talking to Leo earlier, we've got 2, 4, 6, 8. We got 11 wide receivers in the room. And depending on, how many we keep, I gotta believe Bostic and Mims are going to be in the, in the mix. And when you look at Bostic and Mims, both are 6'3", and then you couple that with 6'5" Butler, and you couple that with the speed of Ja'Cour Pearson down the field. How can an offensive coordinator not see that and say, listen, we have got to be able to stretch the field. We have got to be able to play beyond 10 yards.
We're looking
that's
at
where
when you look at the wide receiving core, like you said, Hakeem Butler, 6'5". You've got Denzel Mims, 6'3". You've got James Bostic, 6'3". You've got Jelani Baker, 6'2". They're all big bodies. And
right.
And then, you've got that Andy Isabella. He's a short guy, but he's just like Ja'Cour Pearson in the fact that he's fast.
Right.
So, and then you've got the running back. Jacob Sailors, who finished at the top as far as running backs go, as far as rushing yards last year. I mean, if you've got, one of my biggest complaints with the offense for the Battlehawks last year was way too conservative and not stretching the field. We've since moved on. We've got a new offensive coordinator this year. Will things change? That's the question.
Well, I get it. If you look at what Adrian Martinez did for Birmingham last year, I understand, falling in love with the quarterback being able to gain yards with his legs. And listen, Duggan did it the entire time at TCU. Okay, I understand. But I think you can't just have that type of wide receiving core standing there watching or blocking, whatever it is. Like, you've got to be able to utilize them. So I hope that what they're seeing is some of the things that we're talking about here, that, hey, this is the opportunity we have. I mean, Hakeem Butler is a human highlight reel. I mean, he made some catches last year where you're like, wow. I mean, whoa. And Pearson has that ability to stretch the field. We just have to do it. I mean, Duggan's got a big arm. I don't know as much about Cordero as far as having a big arm. But I just think that we've got to be able to do that. Mims provides another big body. I watched him a lot at Baylor. Obviously, being an Iowa State fan, we saw Baylor every year. The dude's a problem. I mean, he's a real problem. And, I could easily see Mims on one side, Butler on the other, and, Pearson in the slot, and watch out. But we've got to be able to utilize those guys and stretch the field and do the things that, can take advantage. So, I mean, when you look at the additions, with Duggan and Cordero, definitely both can use their legs. And like you said, you saw that today. But the additions of Mims and Bostic, Bostic's a big body as well, 6'3". So, I mean, even with Butler out of the game, you can go 6'3" on one side, 6'3" on the other. One of the biggest additions that I think, and I could be a little biased, but is Chase Allen in the tight end room. Chase Allen is huge.
And he's not the only one. I mean, Jake Sutherland, I thought, was a big guy. He's 6'3", 247. But the two guys they brought in, like you said, Chase Allen from Iowa State, 6'6", 247. Then they brought in another guy, Kamari Everett. He's 6'6", 257. So,
yeah.
Not only are you talking about, what they bring to the passing game, but they're also another large body on the line that's going to help the running game as well.
Yes. So, we did have some subtractions, obviously. McCarron's gone in the quarterback room. Wayne Gallman had some good games for us last year, some big runs. Losing Shepard and Aitman in the wide receiver room, even though there's subtractions, I think with the addition of Mims, with the addition of Bostic, and you talked about Isabella, and there could be somebody else that surprised us here as well. Maybe we won't see, Shepard and Aitman being gone as big a deal as maybe it looks like potentially. But I just think that our additions, we are going to be, I mean, you think about this. If you go 6'5" Butler on the outside, and let's just say 6'3" Mims on the other, and you got Speedy Pearson, or you mentioned the Isabella in the slot, and then you put 6'6" Chase Allen, or, Everett, 6'6". And Sutherland's a solid tight end. I mean, take nothing away from him. But you put that across the board, man.
As far as I'm concerned.
I would agree. 100%. But, hopefully with, the addition of a new offensive coordinator, that they're able to utilize that position a lot more, especially over the middle. Your tight end is your dirty guy, man. Go get those yards in the middle, mess around with those linebackers and things like that. So I'm really excited about, more so I'm excited about the additions than I am down about the subtractions offensively, because I think, you know,
the one
I
good
think
thing
we've got a lot of potential.
As much as my concern is about the three quarterbacks maybe being a little run happy, you know, a happy balance of that probably isn't a bad thing, because last year St. Louis finished dead last in the league in third down efficiency. And,
Right.
you know, say what you want about A.J. McCarron, he's a very talented quarterback, and you and I both wanted him to come back again this year. Didn't work out. But does having a quarterback that has that running option help improve that third down efficiency and maybe sustain a few more drives that last year we were 3 and outs?
Oh, 100% it does. There's no question that now, you know, where we all knew, you and I both knew, that A.J. McCarron was sitting in the pocket. If it's 3rd and 8, you're going to find him in the pocket. You know, now with a Duggan or a Cordero, you can't assume that he's going to stay in the pocket. I mean, that's going to put more pressure on opposing defenses to stay in their lanes and try to keep those guys in the pocket. I like that aspect of it. Now, I'm not going to like it, you know, if we watch that first game on Friday and we're not stretching the field and we're not putting pressure on defenses down the field, because you know as well as I do, to me, the biggest thing that opens up quarterback runs is when you are completing passes down the field and everybody's got their backs turned, and all of a sudden they lose pocket containment, and that quarterback, they don't even know the quarterback's out of the pocket until he's 15 yards down the field. So, I mean, those are the types of things that I'm looking for. I want to see us playing beyond 10 yards. I want to see us trying to stretch the field beyond 10 yards way more than we did last year, because you and I both talked about it. We thought St. Louis's offense was going to be high-powered last year, and it really didn't come to fruition.
No, not even close. Well, one of the things I think that had a bearing on that was Jakor Pearson, JPZ as he's called. He started off the year, I believe, with a hamstring injury.
Right.
And it was something that he just never was really quite able to get over until well into the season. And by then, you know, you've kind of established your offense and you've kind of got your tendencies going, and he just wasn't filtered into the offense and made a part of things. So, you know, he had some spot games where he had some pretty good production, but otherwise he kind of disappeared. And, you know, when he came over from Seattle, where the year before he had just tore it up, you know, It was definitely a disappointment. So I know that he, just like he's looking to really turn the table and show what he's capable of as well.
Yeah, Marty, I understand technical difficulties with a huge snowstorm that we had in, so we're trying to do our best.
Yeah, again, everybody, we apologize for the technical difficulty, but Eric is doing the best we can, and we got Brett back.
Oh man,
You must be having a battle with the fur babies, huh?
yeah, I got some little Michigan Panthers running around causing trouble.
So we're talking about the St. Louis offense, and we was just ready. We was just wrapping up the offense side of the ball. We were ready to turn our attention to the defense. When we talk about the defense, last year they were 3rd overall in defense, 2nd against the pass. If they had an Achilles heel last year, it was their rush defense. one of the things that Coach Beck said was that one of the things that he needed and lacked the most was girth at the defensive tackle position. So I want to read you, as we talked about earlier, about the fact that you can always tell the positions of need because that's the most players you have in camp trying to find out who the answer is to that. So just in defensive tackle and nose tackle, the Battlehawks have had 9 in camp. Here's their sizes. Kyler Baugh, 6'2", 305. Isaiah Coe, 6'2", 311. Albert Huggins, 6'3", 305. Tatilia, I am not even going to – he was with us last year, 6'3", 314. Kobe Smith, 6'2", 312. So the common theme here is that he's definitely bringing in the big boys in hopes that he's going to find some that are going to be the answer to being able to shut down that run defense or run game. So what do you think, Brett? Do you think, St. Louis has always been good on the defensive ends. Travis Faney, Peta, they've even put Carson Wells out there. He's got speed. So
big thing is St. Louis got Mike Rose back. He was definitely the captain of the defense last year, and they missed him tremendously when he was out. He's a ball hawk. He's always in position. He's fundamentally sound. He's definitely, the battery that runs that defense without question.
And it really, you really need Mike Rose to be there because when he's playing that middle linebacker spot, it allows William Harvey to roam. And that's really where, Harvey led the league last year in tackles. Why? Because they give him the freedom to, he's the side to side linebacker, and he's fast. And when Willie Rose was having injury problems, they had to kind of keep Harvey more into that middle linebacking position that kind of hurt their overall defense.
Yeah.
So, Eric, are you going to keep Mike Rose in bubble wrap this year and keep him healthy for us, or?
Oh, man, I hope so. When you have a captain like that you could see the defense was just not the same with him out of there. It just wasn't. You got guys that got to rotate position then, Willie Harvey. I liken it to the Brian Urlacher days with Briggs. Urlacher and Briggs together, really good. Urlacher retires, and Briggs just was never the same for the Bears. Well, in St. Louis, it's the same way. Mike Rose anchors that. He does the dirty stuff. He's the captain of the defense, and Willie is able to just do his thing, and they're a good tandem when they're together. They really are. So, yeah, we're gonna bubble wrap him for sure.
Yeah, St. Louis, Chris Payton-Jones is returning again this year at quarterback. He was one of the starters last year, one of the big reasons why they were second against the pass. We talked to him. I had the pleasure of talking to him earlier this week, and he made the comment that, he of course he played his college ball at Nebraska. And then ever since college, he's kind of been jumping from team to team to team to team in the NFL and never really had an opportunity to settle in and just play football. So, I asked him if coming back for a second consecutive year to St. Louis was a godsend for him, just for consistency, to be able to settle in and just play football. And he was giddy. He was ready to go. So I did see a scrimmage today, a few plays against Arlington. Hard to tell, but I think the defense is going to be there again for them this year. It just comes down to if we can put everything together.
Well,
So,
the nice thing is, safety-wise, we do have Askew Henry coming back. We have Bolden coming back. And we have Quinterio Cole. We do have a couple new ones. Again, it just depends on how many they're going to carry. When I look at all the numbers of the guys, I see a huge cornerback room and a small safety room. So what that tells me is they're going to carry more corners that can also play safety. Because we only have 3 returning corners from last year, and Sebastian, Peyton Jones, and Kennedy. So what our cornerback room looks like is probably going to be the decider. As I said, look at the rooms that are full and look at the rooms that aren't, and that'll tell you where they believe we're strong at and where we need to get better at. So I don't know how many corners end up carrying, but right now we only have 3 out of the 8 off the squad last year. So corner, is going to be pretty important, at least when you look at, the roster that they're carrying currently before we make cuts.
So I was talking to you earlier this week, Brad, about the field goal kicker that St. Louis brought in. He was drafted very high by the Colts and didn't quite pan out. But why don't you kind of fill everybody in on some of the things that you told me about him?
Yeah, Rodrigo is a character. He was actually a walk-on at Georgia, and Bama ended up having to play him 3 years in a row in very, very tough games, and he went from, I believe, a walk-on to finally his senior year he got a scholarship, and kickers, when it gets in their head, it can mess with them, and he started off really good in preseason at the beginning of the season with the Colts, and he had a couple just misses, and you could tell instantly it got in his head, and it went from bad to worse. But I've been following him on Instagram for months now, watching him practice right down the road in Birmingham at one of the high schools. And I told him, just keep up the good work. You've got a leg on you. You've been very successful. We'll get you to the UFL this year. Somebody will pick you up. Just keep putting your videos out, and you'll be back in the NFL where you belong. And you got to give it to the kid. That's it. He liked my comment and followed us and all that, and that's exactly what he's done. He can win you guys some games this year. He's a great kid. He's like so many other kickers. He's a little different. He's a little colorful. He wears those glasses on purpose out there. He's into Transformers and Legos and things like that. He's just a good nerdy kid that everyone can root for. He's put some good videos out there with when he checked in Arlington, and then all the stuff that all the different things that the teams get. The players get with all their bags and hats and all their different shirts, all the different gifts they get when they come on to camp in Arlington. And he seems to be doing pretty well in practice as well. So I'm looking forward to him having a good season for you guys.
So let's do this. Let's get into our predictions because Eric and Brad had the pleasure of getting some one-on-one time with Coach Wisenhunt and the defensive coordinator for Memphis, and we've got a couple of the interviews mic'd up that we wanted to share with you guys as kind of updates to Memphis. So let's go into the prediction stage here for the St. Louis Battlehawks. And then we'll take a quick break and we'll come back and do a quick Memphis update. So why don't you go ahead, Brett?
I've got, and keep in mind, we've talked about the parity and the strength of the XFL conference. St. Louis does get Birmingham at home on the USFL side. They also get Michigan at home. They go to Houston, go to Memphis. That's definitely a bonus for St. Louis. St. Louis gets to play Arlington twice at home this year because of scheduling conflict in San Antonio. That and the fact that their roster is really, really loaded. I've got St. Louis, 6-4 on the floor, and 8-2. Is their ceiling in my eyes. It's still a gigantic question mark at the quarterback position. I think they might miss AJ a little more this year than what people. Because he was just kind of a field general. He was kind of a coach on the field. Now, Eric, you and Eric are correct, though. They didn't take a lot of shots with AJ. You guys have the wide receivers that can really give teams a lot of problems. So we'll see whether it's Duggan or the other kid they signed late. Whoever's going to be quarterback one, if they can get the ball to those guys downfield. But I've got St. Louis winning the XFL conference this year.
So I'm torn between 7-3 and 6-4. I think if they're able to go 7-3, that will be good enough to win the XFL conference. I think that the XFL conference is going to be, there's going to be a lot of parity. I think the 4 teams in the XFL side are going to really beat up on each other. So I wouldn't be surprised to see 7-3 win the conference and 6-4 get thrown into a group for tiebreaker. So what the heck you've inspired me, Brett. Let's go with 7-3 for St. Louis. So we'll have to get Eric's prediction. I don't know if we'll get it tonight or not. He's really things are going downhill fast in Northwest Iowa tonight. That's for sure. But let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll get into a little bit of Memphis talk. We will be.
Hey, beautiful Sunday morning.
He was pumping up his beer snake friends back in the North.
All UFL for a reason.
So many personalities on the field and in the stands in this league.
We love the moments, the memories, the magic, the game. So let's get more. More action. More celebration. More unforgettable. More football. More of what you love.
That was all courtesy of the UFL. Always thank them for allowing us to use their videos off their websites. So, Brett, you and Eric both had the opportunity this week to take part in some of Memphis's Zoom press conferences. Going to play a couple that we put together from those talks. The first one was a question that Eric had for Coach Wisenhunt. And let's go ahead and take a look at that.
Hey, Coach. How you doing? Eric Murtu with the Bottom Line. Talk a little bit about what you're seeing up front. I mean, most of us know that the game is won up in the trenches. And, last year, especially on the USFL side of it, Birmingham and Michigan were definitely the two best teams up front. Can you talk a little bit about your guys up front and what you're seeing, either offensively and defensively?
Well, I think we've got some good players on the defensive line, and it's good to test our offense. But Jim Turner, who's been in the league and has been coaching in this for a while, is doing a great job with our offensive line and what we're doing. We feel like we've got a little bit of depth. Jim has brought in some good guys. We're working hard. The biggest thing about an offensive line is their ability to communicate and work together. It's so important to do that. So we spend a lot of time gearing everything towards that when we're talking about things that we do in camp. It's great to have the team drills and work with those. Jaron has put his defensive line, through the ringers trying to get to us, which has been really good for us. So we've had to block multiple looks against multiple fronts, which, the double teams is such a big part of that. And I think the one thing that we've really stressed is technique. I mean, we want to obviously run the ball, but we also got to be able to protect our quarterback. So I think there's a very good mix of the pressure that they're putting on us with our offensive line being able to recognize and try to do it. So it's been, it's kind of ebb and flow. One day it's the D line and the next day it's the O line, but you can feel, that they're competing. And that's a big piece of it, because once we get to our team, those guys are going to be working together every day in practice, and we still need that. So I feel very good about both lines, and I'm excited to see them when we get into action.
Thanks, Coach.
Got it.
So, as you can see, Memphis, last year they led the league in sacks allowed. So Memphis really had a wide receiving core that had all the potential in the world. They just never got a chance to show it because the quarterback was running for his life. And so this year, with head coach Wisenhunt really putting an emphasis on the trenches and a running game, and so I don't know, Brett. Listening to that, do you see there's reason for optimism in Memphis?
I think they're going to compete in the USFL conference this year for a playoff spot with Birmingham and Michigan. They made quite a few roster moves. Hearing some good things from camp with practices and the scrimmages, and I think they might be head and shoulders ahead of where they were at this time last season with a week or so going, before the first game. That's gonna be a real interesting watch this year as the Showboat.
So Eric, are you with us now? Let's see.
Yeah, I'm frustrated, but okay.
So what's your thoughts as far as what you've heard so far coming out of Memphis camp?
Well, I think, a new season breeds optimism. It doesn't matter, I've talked to now, 2 or 3 coaches and whatever, and from Memphis to Houston, and they're really excited. When I talked to the defensive coordinator Horton and was in on, that meeting, he's really excited about some of the things they've implemented and things that they've new guys that have come in and whatnot. So, and CJ Johnson today, same thing. And with those rosters being completely turned over, I don't see any reason why or how we could sit here and say, well, Memphis is going to be Memphis like they were last year, and Houston's going to be Houston like they were last year. Could that come to fruition? Maybe. But, I mean, the tough part about it is we were talking about with predicting, how the UFL season is going to go. It's tough to do that. So I've got to take them at their word. I think, and Brett, you were on with Coach Horton. He talked about some of the scrimmages they've had and some of the things that they were able to do the positives he was seeing against Birmingham and some of those teams. So, I mean, isn't that kind of the feeling you got? I mean, he was pretty excited. He felt really good. And both him and Coach Wisenhunt said they believe their secondary is going to be very strong. So if the secondary is strong and they're better up front, I mean, doesn't that have to translate into Memphis being a better football team?
Well,
Horton's a very good defensive coach, and he did a fantastic job with the Pittsburgh Maulers in the USFL. They played Birmingham in the USFL championship in year 2 in Canton, and I was there for that game. And he has gotten a lot of those guys, I think 5 or 6, from that Pittsburgh defense with him now in Memphis, including Boogie Roberts.
Well, let's hear a clip. This was the exchange that Brett had with the defensive coordinator, Jaron Horton. The front of the question got cut off, but Brett was referring to Boogie Roberts. So when this clip starts, that's who Brett was asking about. Let's take a listen.
XFL, and he's a character, and we're wishing him the best, of course, with the bottom line. But just want to ask about that, and who do you see your leader being this upcoming season on defense?
Yeah, that's a good question. But first, it's awesome to have Boogie back, not only for the on the field production, because he's been a very productive player in our defense, which is tough at the position that he plays for us, but also as a locker room guy, and just off the field, he's always positive and is a good guy to be around the team. And he kind of knows, like, me and Boogie have a good relationship, and he knows me off the field and kind of how we interact and how I teach and talk and stuff like that. So he's a good guy to kind of bridge the gap between guys that don't know me yet or getting to know me and some of the guys that knew me before. But as far as the leadership goes, there are guys that are being a little bit more vocal, but at the same time, it's kind of tough when everyone's learning the defense for the first time, because it's hard to be vocal when you're still learning and you don't necessarily know all the ins and outs of the defense. I think the next 2 weeks, probably by week 3, for sure, we'll know who that guy is. But right now, I mean, there are a few guys right now, and it kind of goes in cycles, if you will. Like, some guy will speak up and then another guy will speak up, but I don't think there's right now, there's not necessarily like a true one person leader of the defense.
All right, Eric, we got.
So it's really, tell you guys, we've had, as the media credentials start filtering in for all the cities, the bottom line really feels good about the positive response that we're getting from the teams in the UFL. Memphis just being one of them, but we found out from several of the teams already that we are credentialed for this upcoming year. So it's going to be invaluable for us as a podcast to be able to bring you guys up to speed every week and kind of give you a look on the inside of these teams. And let's face it, if there's things we don't agree with or we have questions about how things were handled or lack of this or too much of that, we're going to have the opportunity to ask the coaches and ask the players. And to me, it adds so much to the legitimacy of what we're able to bring to you guys for information. We can't wait to get this season kicked off, that's for sure. So, having said that, we had additional clips that we will go ahead and hold off for next week. Next week, we kick off week 1 of the UFL, which means we are going to have our previews of all 4 games, our predictions of all 4 games. We'll be bringing on a couple guests to help us break things down and give predictions. So the three of us after the show tonight will have to kind of look at the schedule and figure out who we want the big time matchup to be, so that we can plan accordingly. So we bring you guys the best content possible. So either one of you have any parting shots before we get out of here?
Sorry for all the technical difficulties tonight, guys. We will get it handled and do better next week. And my goodness, we have got opening weekend next week. It's just next week. First game is Friday night. The St. Louis Battlehawks travel to TDECU Stadium, back where the Roughnecks belong. And that game's probably going to be a little more interesting than what a lot of the experts think. So stay tuned.
Yeah, it's and that opening Friday night game, of course, is the St. Louis Battlehawks traveling to Houston. And you know, as much as it's going into week one, you don't know what to think, because you haven't been in camp. You don't know anything until you see week one.
Yeah.
So to our predictions for week one, I don't know if it's going to be shooting fish in a barrel, but we'll just have to do the best we can. But again, we want to thank all the pages out there that allow us to share. We're really starting to get a foothold on X, and our subscribers are continuing to increase on YouTube. So
YouTube. Follow us on YouTube.
We couldn't be any happier than to see what Facebook has provided and what's happened to our show over the course of this season 2. But we do know that to get to where we want to go, we're eventually going to need to be on YouTube. So we're getting the stage set now so that we can get as much of our viewers moved over before we actually do the hard turn. So want to thank again everybody for showing up, watching us, thinking we have something that you maybe want to listen to every week. Sure enjoyed our guest, Leo from the Smoking Guns podcast, Excalibur, the #1 mascot in the UFL, and Rick Story, who's probably the #1 tailgater in the UFL. We had them all tonight. So if it happened here, then you know it must have been the bottom line. We'll see you again next Wednesday.
And that's the bottom